Good morning. My name is Barbara Walker with Florida Commerce, Division of Workforce Services. In particular, the TAA and Rapid Response Unit, as well as the Special Initiatives. The state administers the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. However, the services are provided by your local Workforce Development Board, and that's throughout the state of Florida. So regardless of where the funds come, whether it's through formula or special projects, you need to get in contact with your local Workforce Development Board. And what we do is that we offer trainings, as well as when you're looking at special initiatives, temporary disaster employment. And that's for cleanup, restoration, and recovery. That's it.
Thank you.
So as we're thinking about the question of workforce development and training, think about it comprehensively speaking. So what do I mean by that? There's generally two basic elements to that question, which is one, if for example we're talking to a community college that wants to put on a workforce training program. Sometimes the question is going to be, we want to start a new program. So if they want to start a new program, that means getting the funding, the training, and the equipment necessary to launch that program. What EDA is going to be mostly focused on is the facility to allow the training to occur in bricks and mortar, right? So we're generally going to be focused on the bricks and mortar. In some cases, we can potentially buy equipment too, but again, those are on a more limited basis. So like I said, the project example for Manatee County, that was a state funded. They funded the launch of the program, and they funded the equipment and the books and the trainers and things like that. We're going to fund the facility. The other important point here is, again, to be comprehensive. So if you need to fund the actual program and the facilities, that's okay to put that in under one project. Obviously we will strip out what we can fund in terms of facilities versus the programming side of it. But again, that's just another example where if you're going to come to EDA to help build a facility, one of the central questions I'm going to ask, and I'm pointing to you, ma'am. I know you're at Florida Commerce, so you're not the applicant. But let's say you were a county or one of the community colleges, the first question I'm going to ask is, well, do you have a program in place, right? Because I'm not going to build a building that's going to sit vacant. So the premise is that if you're going to ask us to build a building, the programming is already either in hand or you're very close to starting it, right? Because we don't want to build a building that is not going to serve the purpose under which you applied, right? So that's an important. Again, I'm not picking on, so Florida Commerce could certainly help in helping to round out the project from that standpoint. And so typically that'll happen. The conversation with us will be, I'll get a call from, I don't know, Pensacola State College, and they'll say, hey, Greg, we just got funding to increase our aviation training program, and we need, we're running out of space to have the training occur. We need additional space of whatever, 10,000 square feet. It's going to be located here. We anticipate the training program to ramp up in the next 6 to 8 months, whatever. And that's the typical conversation we have about workforce training. But it is a singular, and I point to my friend Mark Odell there from putting the EDOs on the spot. Workforce training, right, Mark, is probably job one. I mean, in large measure, it's job one. So it's such an important factor because one of the questions, and I'm not an EDO, but I play one on TV, right? So one of the first questions they're going to ask Mark, if he's scouting a company, is do you have trained people for the skill sets I'm looking for? That's going to be one of the first questions they ask him. So I just wanted to kind of just sort of step back a little bit, because these are really important discussions to have from a comprehensiveness question.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, so workforce development is where we are. So is there another person or two that might have something to say about that? Any projects out there? Any projects out there for workforce development? Anybody? No? I have one. Yeah. Deb Mathanos, I think you know her and Catherine Kelly over at the Heights. They've talked about their project, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. They couldn't be here today. But this project, and for those of you that hear this and decide, okay, there's something that you did want to say, then feel free. It's the construction of a $42 million, 62,000 square foot post-secondary career technical institute. That's the idea. They're looking for $5 million. They're primarily looking at skilled trade areas such as automotive and marine technologies, HVAC / refrigeration, electrical technologies, plumbing, large appliance repair, welding, and metal fabrication, and such. So the potential benefits, I think it's important to say, first of all, Lee County is chartering this, so they are in conjunction with one of their counties, the county they're in. And it also creates, obviously, jobs. It creates workforce development of people that are already working in other ways that are now moving into some other thing. But I think that one thing that we've talked about, is not on here, but we've talked about, is that the jobs that are created here, many of them in the construction trade, are also jobs that would be considered very resilient-minded jobs. So these people learn these skills that they learn. They also learn that resilience in times of disaster, they can certainly fit in to help with that. So there's a lot of components to, like Greg said, to workforce development. If you have anything to say, that I'm here, all ears to listen.
Yeah, just let me add to that, Jim. Sure. Definitely, that's a continuing discussion we'd like to have with the folks that we met back after Hurricane Ian. Yeah, so. Oh, they have? Okay. One of the other things to consider when we're looking at the topic of workforce development and training is, and this is an important one too, it's not just about, let's say, new training programs. It's also giving people an opportunity to upskill themselves as well. So many of the projects that come to us reflect upskilling, right? So we're taking people in potentially lower wage job opportunities, providing them upskilling opportunities to get into higher wage job opportunities. And so the project that I showed there, well, I was showing you the project in Osceola County, but one of the things, when they built that semiconductor fabrication facility, one of the things they considered was workforce training. And one of the things the applicants and the collected folks were talking about is they can take someone who has manufacturing technological know-how with upskilling, can actually put them to work in that semiconductor technology space. So it doesn't mean a college degree. It doesn't mean getting a doctorate. It means, no disrespect to the doctorate PhDs in the room, but it could be giving someone an upskilled credential that could take place over 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, and then take someone from that that logistics distribution job that's paying, $25 an hour to $39 or $40 an hour, now getting into the semiconductor technology space. So that's just one example I can cite very concretely in terms of what Osceola County and the OEDP or the Orlando Economic Partnership are trying to do in that Orlando, Osceola County area.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I think I'll just add one other thing here to what you're saying, which was there are a lot of people that are doing other jobs, and their workforce development is not about training per se. It's about actually making somebody a little better at what they were doing, or maybe helping them do something else. But you're definitely helping other people go. The capital of that is absolutely huge. People that move from one job and up to the next job, they appreciate it that an awful lot. So it does build capital within your own system. So,
John Salucci, Lee County. I would just put a little caveat on this whole development concept that one of the things I see lacking in the skills trade is the soft skills, their inability to return phone calls, show up and do the work. And even when they do it, many of them are working under somebody else's license, and they themselves really don't have the skill. So then you're doing double work, and that creates a really bad image, particularly on the snowbirds, the part-time people that are investing here, buying homes, and need their HVAC fixed or their boat fixed and things like that. So between the soft skills lacking and many of the supposed skilled people down here, coupled with the bad storms, the red tide and everything else, that's one of the factors that's an unwritten factor that's causing a lot of people to sell their properties, businesses not to come here. You're going to see a lot more growth in other southeast states than Florida. Florida's got some problems that if they don't start addressing them. I'm from the Northeast originally. I'm from Philly. So I have a different mindset than the people that I meet down here. And you know what? It's not mañana. Show up today, do your work. And that is an attitude that prevails across all the skill sets, particularly the needed skill sets of electricians and plumbers, those two in particular, and also marine. Guys that work on boat engines, they just don't care.
All of which are in this
Oh, yeah,
package.
it's an issue that if you're doing a training, I suggest you have a soft skill, customer relations aspect to it too, that, maybe a lot of business owners need to have the pay structure that if you don't do the job and you do it when you're told, you lose pay. So you need soft skill incentives to get people to work.
Agreed.
It's John, right? Greg Viday, just responding. John, yeah, you make a good point. I've heard that time and time again, that soft skills is so critical. It's not just getting the skill set, but applying the attention to detail and the customer service. I mean, we as I know from all my friends here at federal and state, we try to get back to people within 24 hours. If there's an email or a phone call, we try to get back to them either that day or the next day, and that's really critical because I know time is money, time is valuable, and as far as workforce training is concerned, those soft skills are essential. If you've got a job to do, you need to show up on time or early. You need to complete the job, and then you need to follow up with the customer and make sure the job was done right. I mean, I'm not an educator, but obviously, the ones that are doing the workforce training have to instill those soft skill priorities as well, because without that, people are going to look elsewhere, like you said. They're going to go elsewhere, and they're going to lose out on those opportunities to build their own business or enterprise. So,
Just to add to that, then, prior to coming to Florida, I was an executive in several Fortune 100 companies, and I had tens of thousands of employees I was responsible for. And one of the key things, and it was in the energy sector, energy efficiency sector, and we created whole programs of soft skill training and showed the metrics and said, if you don't meet this, you don't get. It's a carrot and stick approach. It's very simple to do, and it's fundamental to the skills that they learn. It's one thing to do refrigeration. It's another thing to do it correctly. So one thing to run wires and put a receptacle in. It's another thing to do it correctly. And the soft skills are what really takes off. And I would personally say that you probably need to have retired people from the industry come in that have good, successful, maybe businesses. They've sold them. They've retired, to come in as part of your training program for this facility and teach the up-and-coming people the issues related to how you get the job done, not just get it done and get my money and move on.
Absolutely.
I think one thing, I'm from Collier County, and I think one thing for workforce development that is important, it's affordable housing. I mean, we want to develop a workforce that cannot live in Collier County and have to drive for an hour and a half daily. So I don't know if this have to do with the work development, but what ideas are out there to address this issue, which I think is really important for the workforce development.
Is anyone from HUD on the line, Joy or Dana? Is Matt on the line, Dana?
Yeah, I'm on the line.
Yeah, one of the things, obviously, and to your question, we understand that, workforce development and training and having a skilled workforce is not enough. You've got to provide them opportunities for workforce housing and all types of housing, right? For nurses to firemen and police officers and all the other skill sets that are required. We understand that's really critical to economic development. So it is an economic development issue. It's just that we don't build housing. So I'm going to turn over to my HUD friends. But it is. But the reason I mention why it's important to us, because I have had discussions with communities. We have funded post-disaster redevelopment plans. And why do I say that? I say that because such a post-disaster redevelopment plan, we can address housing, infrastructure, social services, natural resources, all the issues that have to come together in an integrated way to make sure you have a viable and sustainable economy. So I'm saying that housing, we understand that it underpins economic development. We're just not going to, we just don't build housing, right? So that's something that we would take and look to our friends at HUD and the state of Florida through their CDBG-DR applications and things. So Matt, can you speak to that larger issue?
Yeah, sure, Greg. And like you said, workforce housing is something that we've been hearing at a lot of these events, and a lot of our stakeholder engagement around Florida has definitely been something that people.
This real quick. Just after natural disasters, what I see in my community and around all this area is that we have a lot of displaced people, and rent goes up. And most of the underserved communities are people that don't own houses. So that's another issue that I want you to address in your answer as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
We should just say that.
Yeah, so I just want to say that's definitely something that we've been hearing as well. A lot of these programs are more geared toward homeowners, unfortunately, especially with disaster recovery. We do have a new pot of funding, rapid unsheltered survivor housing. So for anybody that might be displaced or suffered from evictions or, are sort of missing housing right now, there's about 14 million to the state for unsheltered folks. And we can send information out on that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Joe Labadie from U.S. Department of Agriculture. I'm not sure how aware people are of rural development, which is one of our agencies, has two major housing programs. One is direct loans to purchase houses that are for low income folks in rural areas, and the other is a loan/grant. It could be either or. It could be either loan or grant or combine the two for housing repairs. Now, neither of these programs are disaster programs; they're steady state programs. But the repair program has been working on getting some eligibility expansion to have more people eligible for the grants. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it, but it has to do with because of people who whose houses were impacted by disasters. So I would be happy to, Milton, I can send you resources on these two programs so it could be distributed.
That'd be great. And Morgan, I guess all that will be on after the fact. It'll be on in the notes or in the